Right, I think I'm back now.
Are we live now?
Yes, sir. Dante, do the pleasures.
All right, and welcome back again to the Paisan Sports podcast presented by Elevation 5280 Sports. Dante DePlacido, joined as always by Zach Deal of What's the Deal Sports. Special guest today, Sean. You know what? You're gonna have to help me on this last name pronunciation. Redden.
Yeah,
Redden.
red. Yeah,
Yeah,
red
it's
and
really not that
Redden.
difficult. It's really not that
Hey, I
difficult.
just wanted to make sure I had it right. All right. I didn't want to mispronounce his last name. But anyway, going back to Zach Deal of What's the Deal Sports, I've got to ask, what's the deal with all this gorilla talk? Can 100 men beat one gorilla? A lot of debate online. I think you get 100 Navy SEALs and UFC fighters and Miles Garrett. They take down the gorilla, no problem. Let's stop this discussion.
Does Miles Garrett have a helmet?
No weapons. That's part of the.
What if we have like
part of the
every
stipulation.
athlete that's ever like just crashed out with like the item that they crashed out with?
Oh, well, then the gorilla's going down. But I was thinking about it a bit more this morning, right? I need 30 of those guys to be MMA fighters who just have lethal leg kicks. And their whole assignment is to just kick the crap out of the gorilla's leg until he falls. And then the rest of the 70 guys can just ground and pound. Game over.
I don't think that's really a tactic that's gonna be able to work. So.
It'll work. It'll work, man.
I don't think that's gonna work, but this isn't like an original thought. This has been something that me and my friends have been talking about since like high school. I think the conversation back in the day was like a bunch of like Ray Lewis's versus the gorilla. So
Yeah,
think
I
it was,
mean,
like,
look,
seven.
look,
I
you
think it
get
was
Ray
like
Lewis a part of
I
that
think it was
squad,
set at
Miles Garrett.
I think it was set at like 7 Ray Lewis's to beat up a silverback gorilla. So
No, it's going to take more than that,
yeah, I
but
think it would take more than that. But
you get B-Dawk in there too, Prime B-Dawk, Prime Brock
did you see
Lesnar.
that? Did I send you the simulation that there was on Instagram? There's like
I've seen
going
a
around
few
simulation of it.
simulations.
Yeah, but I saw the simulation, and the one that I sent you, I think I sent it to you. It just looks like the gorilla's moving too fast for how fast the gorilla can actually move. So
Gorillas can move fast, dude. They can move. Let me see what you sent me. I don't. Oh yeah, I don't think I saw that one. This one does not look as
doesn't
This
it
does
look
not
like
look
that gorilla's moving
realistic.
way too fast?
No, gorillas are quick, dude. I saw a video the other day of
Yeah,
a
no,
gorilla
but it looks like
moving
I'm
while
talking
pounding
about
his
like
chest, and he just burst ahead,
yeah,
man.
but like are gorillas like agile though? Are they able to like run full
I
speed
don't
and then
think they're
turn around
agile.
real
They
quickly
might
and
just
run the
be
other way?
downhill
Like
runners, sort of like a DeMarco Murray. You know what I mean?
yeah, I mean yeah, that's a crazy reference to Marco Murray bringing him out of the
When I think of a
woodwork.
runner that can only go downhill, that's what comes to
That
mind.
kind of was him. And then he
Yeah.
would kind of stumble forward, and that's how he would get tackled. But
Oh yeah, that was a good trait of his. He would get tackled, and every time he would just fall forward to pick up an extra few yards. So shout out to Marco Murray, man. But anyway, speaking of DeMarco Murray, let's talk NFL draft. All right, we were live during round one, and then a lot happened since then. Let's talk about it.
yeah, we were live on the Elevation 5280 Sports page talking about the draft. It was kind of, not like shocking as in I don't know. The pick didn't feel shocking, even though it was kind of out of the blue, the player that they did take, but nobody was upset with it, and that was a good thing. I think everybody was just happy to grab another playmaker for the defense, especially one that was versatile. And Dante, I'm pretty sure we were talking about how this draft in the beginning of the draft process when we started talking about the NFL draft on the podcast, we were talking about how many tweener linebackers were in the draft that were like edge type guys that were kind of fit like the Zach Vaughn mold. And this was one of the players that fell to him. I mean, it looks like the rest of the league really didn't like the medicals to draft, even though consensuously he was pretty much like a top 12 guy in the draft class to most people. But hey, I mean, the rich get richer, and that's what he said after he got
He
drafted.
said the
So,
richer get rich.
Is that what he said? He messed.
He messed it up. He said the
Yeah,
richer get rich.
the adrenaline was pumping. So I mean, Nick Sirianni's press conference when he first became the Eagles coach wasn't too.
It was a
bright
disaster. It was
Super Bowl
bad. It was
anymore,
not
so.
good. But yeah, not only that, I mean, he went sprinting through that hallway. He was pumped up to be an Eagle, a local kid, out of
Yeah, the
Ariel.
two happiest people I saw at the draft to get drafted were probably him and Tyler Booker to the Cowboys. And I don't know if you guys saw. I think it's just like a fake quote that's going around, but so like someone's posting a quote that Tyler Booker said that someone asked him who he's most excited to line up against, and he said Jalen Carter, line me up against that crybaby bitch. But I
Yeah,
don't think there's
yeah.
any chance
Good,
that he's
good,
already
good luck to you, Trevor
with
Booker.
Jalen
I
Carter
think
about
I
that.
think he actually did say Jalen Carter, but he didn't add the crybaby bitch part.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would just that if you're already setting the tone like that, I mean, actually, I would respect that and love that if he did say that. And I like Tyler Booker as a player, but every Cowboys fan that I know, and obviously, um, around this area, somehow there still is a lot of Cowboys fans, and I'm close friends with a lot of Cowboys fans. They all wanted a skill position player with their top pick, and we're not pleased with a guard. And now they have 3 offensive linemen with the name Tyler, which is very interesting. So,
Yeah, and so far, one of them is good. We'll see how good Tyler Booker
but
is. But
when the draft was happening,
Guyton, not
when
good
the
so
draft
far.
after the draft happened, I kind of sat back and analyzed and looked at the NFC East as a division itself and the impact of the Eagles winning the Super Bowl and what it made the other teams do. And you saw that there was 2 offensive linemen taken by Washington and Dallas, and then an edge rusher with how good the Eagles' pass rush was too, and Abdul Carter arguably being the best player in the draft class. So you can see the impact of how people are trying to mold their team after the formula of what made the Eagles successful too. So getting a guy that can do both things and play off ball and on the edge and do those things. I don't know if he's going to be ready by week 1. There's probably not a good chance that he's ready to go by the start of the season, but even Howie said it himself that they're not expecting him to be ready, and that's not the plan. They just want him for the future. And this is also a guy in Jahad Campbell that turned 21 in February. So this is a young guy that can really grow into this. And I was really happy with the pick personally. And I don't really care about that 5th round pick, trading that 5th round pick away to go up and get him to secure him. And people are like, why did you do that? Just so another team didn't trade up. I don't care about that pick in the long run. You know what I mean? We've seen
Well,
so
yeah,
many.
and not only that, we
Yeah.
ended up with plenty of 5th round picks. Now me and Zach reacted live to the Jahad Campbell pick. We gave our thoughts. Sean, what do you think about it?
I liked it. I thought he was without a doubt the number one linebacker in this draft. And like you guys said at the beginning of the show, he's like a Zach Bond type player where he can also line up on the edge and also be a difference maker as a legit pass rusher as well. I think his ability to blitz is second to none in this draft class as well. The guy has a high motor, great instincts, and flies around to the ball, hits sideline to sideline. When it got to the point where Malachi Starks got taken by the Ravens, because I mean that was like the pipe dream. Um, I posted, I said, they have to leave this round with Jahad Campbell, Mike Green, or Will Johnson. Other than that, it's a failure. And then they got Jahad Campbell, so you can't really be mad at it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, not at all. And talking about how he's an off-ball linebacker and an edge rusher, the Eagles have already kind of hinted that he's primarily going to be an edge rusher, which I think
he
is
was
the
only forced to be an off-ball linebacker at Alabama because they had a bunch of first-round talents from years past that forced him to play inside. So you can see,
yeah.
like,
And he
what
was a 5-star recruit at edge rusher coming out
we
of high
talked about
school.
this on numerous podcasts about how, like, the Sixers and the Eagles have been taking those, like, 5-star recruit high school guys, even regardless of what their college career has produced, and they've always worked out. With Josh Sweat was like the number 1 guy coming out of his class, and they got him in the 4th round. And like Justin Edwards was a 5-star recruit for the Sixers like 2 years ago coming out of high school, and now he's in their rotation as an undrafted free agent. So it's a formula all Philadelphia sports have been taking. I was really sold. I mean, I loved Will Johnson as a prospect. So, I mean, they took a chance on Jahad Campbell, who has medicals. So I would have taken that same chance on Will Johnson and been happy either way.
Teams must have really been cautious though of Will Johnson because I mean he fell. I thought he was going to be like the first or second pick in the second round, but he fell all the way down to
It
the
really,
Cardinals.
it honestly didn't make any sense at all. Like, even if there was a medical, like you heard with Jahad Campbell, like there's possibility that it's both shoulders and knee issues, and he still is going there as that
Right.
prospect. And we're talking about Will
Yeah, but
Johnson.
the shoulder issues and a possible knee issue isn't the same as an ACL. You know,
Well, a knee
so
issue can be like to an ACL. So
could be, but I think with Will Johnson, it seems like a much more serious injury concern. It seems like Jahad Campbell should be good to go with his shoulder issues for the start of the season. So I think it makes sense. But speaking of Sean saying, they wanted Malachi Starks, I think in the second round we got the second best safety from what I've learned about him, maybe even better than Malachi Starks and Makuba.
I don't agree with that. I think Nick Evenwari. I wanted Nick Evenwari really bad with that 32nd pick if we would have sat there, and I would have. I like Reed Blankenship. I've grown into liking Reed Blankenship, but the known thing about him is his lack of athleticism. So if you put a guy that's 6'3", 220 pounds that runs around like that, and he would more so play in the box, so he could play strong safety for you at the line of scrimmage and just go forward and just make plays on the ball. So I would have been happy with that pick too. This guy. He hits like he on tape he hits crazy, but like I'm just not sold on him being able to lay those type of hits at 185 pounds in the NFL. So I feel like he has to bulk up a little bit, but I also don't want players to like get out of their character and like change things about their game and him bulk up and maybe get a little bit slower. But the funny part was about Mabuka was I saw I always tell people about that Gunnar Stockton hit that he took, and I never knew that he was the one that laid that hit on him until after the Eagles drafted him. Like I always tell people, like, yo, if you want to see the craziest hit ever, like you have to see the look on Gunnar Stockton's face after he receives that hit. Like there's like a still image of his ankle and leg roll behind his back and his eyes are like rolled into the back of his head. It's like the craziest thing ever. And like, he lays the wood. It's not even just that. There's videos of him laying the wood on tight ends as well. So he's a guy that he only had one interception at Clemson until he transferred to Texas and had 5 picks this year. So he was making plays on the ball. And it's a guy that, obviously they had to replace that position. It was, there was a lot of talk about safety or tight ends. And I really liked both top 2 safety prospects and both top 2 tight end prospects. But you saw they replaced the safety position, but they didn't do anything to address tight end. So it looks like Dallas Goedert's probably going to stay an Eagle.
Yeah, I had Makuba in my top 5 at safety. I had him behind Iwamari, who Zach pointed out. I mean, he's a freak athlete. I would have not been mad at all if that ended up being the pick. My only worry with him is he's still kind of raw, from like an actual like football skill wise, and I fear that if he doesn't get used correctly, where he's at, that he could fall into like the Isaiah Simmons type category where teams don't really know how to use a guy like that, even though how freakish athletic he is. But Makuba, like Zach said, doesn't think he's going to be able to lay the wood like that. I actually completely agree. On my scouting report on him, I said he's going to be a liability in the run game, but he is a legit coverage safety. Like to me, honestly, my player comp to him would be like a guy like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, where he's going to miss some tackles, but he's going to make a few highlight hits that sticks out to fans and stuff. But he's going to be way better in coverage than a guy like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was.
Yeah, and that's the thing with him, which to me makes him a perfect fit, you have Reed Blankenship as your run stopping safety. You have a guy in the nickel in Cooper DeJean who can stop the run. So to put in a guy like Makuba, who, from what I've seen after learning more about him after we drafted him, he is very smart in coverage. He's a very smart guy out there in the secondary. Reads the quarterback well. He reads the routes that's happening around him. Makes a lot of the smart decisions in coverage. Can cover a lot of ground. Having that guy alongside a slower, not as good in coverage, more run stopping safety such as Reed Blankenship, I think will work really well. We saw it work really well when Gardner Johnson was teamed up with Reed Blankenship in the secondary. It's part of that led to a Super Bowl. So I think Makuba's possibly the perfect fit for the Eagles secondary.
They have to make sure that they're getting to the ball though, and actually getting the ball in their hands and creating turnovers. Because C.J. Gardner-Johnson obviously played for the Eagles on 2 different stints and had 6 interceptions in both of those seasons. And last year, a corner didn't have an interception in the regular season for the Eagles, so they're going to have to be able to get their hands on the ball. Obviously, Cooper DeJean had the pick 6 in the Super Bowl. Quinyon Mitchell, when he was hurt, had that crazy pick on Jaden Daniels in the playoffs, and Darius Slay also had a pick in the beginning of the playoffs.
I'm pretty sure
Zach Bond had one.
Quinyon Mitchell ended up with 2 interceptions in the playoffs.
Yeah, he did.
He got one against the Packers, and the Commanders.
Yeah, that's right.
The Slay one happened in that was the Packers game, right?
It might have been
Which
Rams.
one?
The Slay one was in the Packers game, right?
I think it might have been Rams, but you might be right.
I don't know if they got I know they got a fumble in the Rams game.
Yeah, I don't think they got a pick on Stafford in the Rams.
Yeah, it might have been the Packers.
Now that I think about it, this was the first time in our lifetimes, at least, that we've witnessed 4 Eagles playoff games in the same season. Any other time they've made it to the Super Bowl, they've had the bye week. So this is the first time we've had like 4 different games to think back on.
I just saw the power rankings, like post-draft power rankings, and then I saw later on in the day the highest paid players on offense at each position, and the Cowboys have the quarterback annual pay, quarterback, and slot receiver as the highest paid players in the power rankings by NFL.com. They were 20th, so I thought that correlated to be pretty funny because the Eagles ended up being number 1. But I just was also thinking about last season, how fraudulent that Vikings season was, like how they were just such a fraudulent team. I knew they were going to crumble. I'm a big Sam Darnold guy too. I thought he was the best quarterback from his draft class. I was obviously wrong about that. I root for him, but I just knew he was going to crumble under pressure later in that season. So, like post-draft, Sean, was there any team that you thought had a really good draft that now you see as somebody that could compete with the Eagles that may have not been considered on that level that kind of took like that next step? More so, I would say like that's like kind of like pointed towards like an NFC team that they would have to like go through in like the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm not sure that a team is necessarily like gonna make a leap to where like they're not contending to where they can be contenders. I mean, I like the Packers adding Golden, a legit wide receiver threat in that room. But they still got concerns on defense as well. Like, is Jair Alexander going to be a Packer by the time the season comes around? There's a lot of rumors that he's not. So I mean that's a team that has even more issues, but they did hit on their
We
draft pick
saw
in my
like
opinion.
so many, like there was just like a lack of trades. There was trades that happened during the draft, but leading up to the draft. I was listening to the Adam Schefter podcast, and he was saying that the morning of the draft, he knew of the Jacksonville trade. So they just like announced that like for the suspense of the drafts, like during the draft, but that was already agreed upon, like at least the day of the draft in the morning, like or even before then, I assume. And there was also rumors like a couple days before the draft that the Giants and the Browns were both receiving calls for the draft. But there was also a lack of trades for all the star players that were rumored to be traded.
I think it had to do with like Yeah, exactly. The Ravens were rumored to be shopping Mark Andrews as well, and had no biters on that. But I think it was more so to do with people view this draft class as like a down year, for like prospects. But in my opinion, it's a down year for like top heavy like guys that are going to be like legit day one difference makers. But offensive tackle, tight end, defensive backs, like there was a lot, and running back especially, there was a lot of depth in this draft. Guys that are going to be special teams contributors or long careers, as depth guys, and I think teams value that over more so than trying to trade for an Asian guy, to try to push them over the edge.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
and
I like for me, the best trade that I saw, even if it doesn't work out for the Seahawks, was them moving off Geno Smith, and then that trade ending up being Jalen Milroe for Geno Smith. Like I thought that was a brilliant trade because you get a guy that's significantly younger by like 13 years that could possibly be the face of your franchise one day with traits that could blossom into something if he gets used correctly. Um, but I thought like getting younger at a position like that. So it's all about the youth too and the youth movement. Like there's nobody out there like making. I mean, I thought that was kind of bold for the Raiders to make that trade in general, instead of like going out and drafting a quarterback. There was a lot of rumors that Chip Kelly, being the former Ohio State offense coordinator, that Will Howard could end up finding his way to Las Vegas, but that didn't end up happening. But yeah, like you talked about, like making the example of the tackles in the draft. The Eagles got 3 students to Stoutland University. We talked about before how they might just take flyers on guys later in drafts that are developmental pieces because you never know what they can turn into with the best offensive line coach in the entire league. So I was pretty happy. I thought it was interesting they plucked from Michigan 2 years in a row.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, my bad.
sorry, go ahead, John.
No, I was just gonna say no. I think Howie just hit his not change his philosophy, but like realize like if you just take the guys from the top colleges like Alabama, Georgia, Michigan just won a national title last year. Like chances are those guys are gonna pan out more often than not. And then just to offensive tackle real quick, my outside of Makuba and Jihad Campbell, our 6th round pick Cameron Williams, I actually had him in my top 10 of offensive tackle rankings. I personally thought he should have went back to Texas. I think if he would have went back to Texas for another season next year, he would have been looking at being a 1st round pick or early 2nd round pick, because he's really raw. He had so many penalties last year at Texas. It was only his first year as a starter, but his traits and his size and his footwork, everything is like exactly what you want in like a bookend offensive tackle. And I love that pick. I love that he went to Stoutland. And I really do believe that even though he was a 6th round pick, when Lane Johnson retires, you're going to be able to just slide him in there.
Yeah, is he
Yeah,
going to be able to play specifically right tackle? Do you think?
Well, I just think Mailata's not gonna be going anywhere
No,
anytime
no, but
soon.
I know, but I'm saying like also I just feel like there's a difference. There's a difference between left and right tackle. Like there's a learning curve
Oh
to
yeah,
that
for
in
sure.
itself. So, but the good thing about him is like the way you describe him is he's raw and will take a couple years, but he's going to be able to learn behind Lane Johnson and the best offensive line coach in the league, get molded into the player that he needs to be, and then hopefully take over that position. So, they also the other dude from Michigan isn't Miles Hinton. Is that his name?
Yeah,
yeah,
And he's like 6'7", 325 pounds, gigantic dude. So I mean, he kind
Yeah,
of
I
fits
really
that.
like that Miles Hinton pick as well. I think, with going with both Cameron Williams and Hinton, it's almost exactly what I was talking about going into the draft, where if you take a couple linemen in the late rounds who are just pure raw ability, then you have a couple cracks at Stoutland, turning one of them into Lane Johnson's future replacement. And I think the odds that neither of them end up being able to be, if neither of them being shaped into a Lane Johnson replacement, the odds of neither of them shaping out like that, I think, are slim. I think at least either one of them is going to be able to take over for Lane in the future. So I really like both of those picks in the 6th round.
yeah.
Yeah, and
There's
actually,
nobody with a better track record. I mean, look at Halapulavati Vaitai, from back on the Super Bowl year. Eagle obviously left Eagles, but he went and got a bag from the Lions.
Yeah.
Isaac Seumalo turned into a quality offensive lineman for the Steelers. Like he has a track record of turning late guys into
Yeah.
starters in the NFL. I mean, look at Mekhi Becton, was a cast off, rumored close to being out of the league.
And even Mailata, Mailata is the
Yeah.
biggest example. A guy who had literally never played football before in his life, only decided he wanted to play left tackle because he liked the movie The Blind Side. and Stoutland was able to turn that
I think the
into
funniest thing about
an
Mailata
all-pro
is like
caliber left tackle.
the funniest thing about Mailata is like the only like correlation to what he did in rugby to football was the ball in his hands, and he just doesn't do that at all and just blocks people. That's what I think is the funniest part. Like imagine him at tight end, just like him catching a pass over the middle and people trying to take him down with like a
Right, who
full
wants to hit him?
Yeah, exactly. But
They did
actually, of
invite
all
they did invite another rugby player to rookie camp this year. I don't think he's going to be an O lineman though, because I'm pretty sure they said he's only like 210 pounds or something like that. But dude looks like he runs hard. I don't know what their plans are for him, but
Yeah, real quickly, if we're talking about undrafted free agents, this was a really good running back draft class, but they obviously didn't draft a running back because they gave Saquon an extension, signed A.J. Dillon, and drafted Will Shipley last year. But the one undrafted running back that I think has a chance to make the roster that they signed was Montrell Jackson from Florida. And I think he has a lot of good traits to be like a back end of the roster guy. And Will Shipley obviously is a special teams guy too. So I think they just like want to have as many able young bodies as they can because they need to be able to run the ball. And if anything happens to Saquon, I think that running back backfield becomes more so like a committee, like a three-headed monster instead of just leaning completely on Saquon. And we don't even know how much they can lean directly on Saquon. But getting back to the offensive lineman that they drafted, I actually, out of the three that they did draft, I like Drew Kendall the most from Boston College, the interior offensive lineman. And I think he has a lot of good traits. I think he has a chance to actually win over the guard spot. He's a good size at like 6'4", 310. I think he might more so be a natural center, but we've seen the Eagles draft guys at different positions on the offensive
Landon
offensive line and
Dickerson,
all around. So,
he was drafted as a center. I
yeah,
think
they just
even
moved guys all around.
originally to replace
Cam
Kelsey,
Jurgens
but
filled in at guard originally until Jason Kelsey retired and then moved back to center. Mekhi Becton was a tackle until he went to the Eagles and was a guard. It just shows they'll move guys all over the place. So we don't even know about the two other tackles where they'll end up playing if one of them ends up winning the spot. And then you still have the trade with C.J. Gardner-Johnson with Kenyon Green in the mix, even though, we don't
and
know if
that's a
that's
guy he's just like Becton. It was a high pick. Didn't reach his potential with his first team, and could be another reclamation project.
But now I feel like with these other guys that they drafted on the roster, like I said, I like Drew Kendall and then the other guys, and then they have some guys from last year that they drafted two that are still on the roster. And then Tyler Steen's obviously that like 6 offensive lineman that's floating around. I wouldn't say the best case scenario for the Eagles is Kenyon Green to win that job. Honestly, the best case scenario would probably be like a guy like Drew Kendall to win that job as a rookie, and then you have the cheapest possible contract because now you have 4 gigantic offensive line contracts, including the highest left guard contract in the league in Landon Dickerson, a $22+ million contract with Jordan Mailata, the extension you just gave the Lane, and then you couldn't even pay Mekhi Becton, so you need somebody to fill in. And then you just gave Cam Jurgens the second highest paid center contract in the league. So they need a cheap fill in. And if like Kenyon Green ends up winning the job and looks great, that's cool. But that's like a glue type. That's not like a glue type situation.
Well,
kind of
let's not rule out Tyler Steen. He was a 3rd round pick. A lot of people were saying this past season he didn't exactly lose the job at right guard, and Mekhi Becton won it. Tyler Steen still looked good. So I think it's going to be a competition in training camp and preseason. But, if Tyler Steen ends up working out, then that could be a good solution, less of like a glue option because it's a guy, they just drafted a couple of years ago. But I do want to talk, while we're talking about the trenches in the draft, I want to talk about the 2 other guys they got on the defensive side of the trenches. One guy I'm very excited about, which is Ty Robinson out of Nebraska. And then the final pick of the draft, Antoine Powell Ryland, who we didn't get Donovan, the pass rusher that I wanted, but we got a different guy with 16 sacks in his senior year of college. So I'm really excited about both of those draft selections as well.
Yeah, anytime you can get a guy with that much production, obviously he's probably lacking some type of traits, but he has some production on tape. So if you can get the most out of him, and he can be a guy that could fill in the rotation, that'd just be another good late round draft pick that Howie could pick. Yeah, but Ty Robinson's interesting. I heard Brian Baldinger talking about Ty Robinson. He thought Ty Robinson already coming into the NFL is better than Milton Williams, which I thought was kind of crazy to say. But Ty Robinson is a beast. He's just somebody that when you watch him, he's just like one move and he's downhill in the backfield just making plays. And that's just what he does. And he's just a load. He's a gigantic dude. Played in a tough conference that's just known for like hard-nosed football. And I like him as a replacement and a guy that they can add to the rotation along with Moro Ojomo and Jordan Davis, who they just exercised the fifth-year option on. So I think they have a good defensive line rotation. A lot of people forgot with Jahad Campbell now coming into the rotation too. They also have Josh Uche and Aziz Ojulari that they signed in the offseason. So now their front seven's actually looking really good. Honestly, it's like
I'm
it's
really
not
excited
loaded with
about their
like
D
top
line.
end talent. Like it's not like wowing you with like players like popping off the page as like a top 3 player at their position in the league, but like the depth and the way that the Eagles want to rotate, there's a lot of talent that's going to be fresh to be able to be utilized.
That's what I was
Yeah,
gonna say. I don't think they necessarily replaced like Josh Sweat talent wise. But this rotation is going to be way deeper than it was last year, almost reminiscent to the year when they almost broke the sack record when they lost Super Bowl to the Chiefs. There was just a constant rotation. Guys were never tired. I mean, obviously, Hassan Reddick played damn near every play, but the other guys were on a rotation. And I think Brandon Graham's going to still be around, not obviously not as a player, but he's going to be coaching these young guys up. And I think that's going to be huge for them. And then also, like you just pointed out, Ty Robinson, I didn't have him that high as a prospect, but he's a massive man. His name is literally the Vanilla Gorilla, so maybe Dante could draft him for when he takes on the that one gorilla. He could be one at
yeah,
100. But
yeah. Throw him
and
out there, man.
you mentioned
Yo,
Moro
I'll
Ojomo.
take 100 Ty Robinsons versus 100 gorillas.
Just let him bull rush. You know.
I'm gonna say I don't know if we're gonna have the speed to do that, but with just him out there, but no, I think Moro Ojomo was more talented than Milton Williams last year. Like I don't think you're gonna see a fall off in the defensive tackle position at all this year.
Yeah, I agree on that. Moro Jomo really, really showed up. He played really well in the snaps that he had. Obviously, so did Milton Williams. I mean, both of them really just
Yeah, but
benefited
I feel like
from.
every time that I think about Milton Williams and like he was a good player, he was productive at times, and he was a part of the rotation. But like we talked about a couple years ago when they had to sign the old defensive tackles in Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh, Milton Williams was on the roster. Like where
Hmm.
was he at, like production
Right.
wise, making plays? And even last year when everybody, or 2 years ago, not the Super Bowl year, but the year before that, where they all flared out and all the talk was Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter aren't conditioned. Like, where's Milton Williams? Where's the blame being put on him? And then now he's like the highest paid defensive free
Yeah,
agent.
and that's the
I
thing
mean,
I was about to
it's
get
kind of
to
like
is
his
both him
ascension
and
was real quick,
Ojomo,
but
they
like
were
how important was
benefiting.
he truly to the Eagles? He's a talented guy, but like he's not somebody that you lose. I think like losing Josh Sweat as a like consistency guy was more important, but obviously Milton Williams as a 25-year-old, you would probably sign him over Josh Sweat to an extension if you were going to sign either one of those guys. If that was a part of the plans, you would probably sign Milton Williams because he's a 25-year-old. You know what I mean? So that's the value in that. But
Yeah,
I don't.
and that's the thing. Both Moro Jomo and Milton Williams benefited from Jalen Carter eating up all the double teams and them getting the
Absolutely.
one-on-ones. So when you have that big of a force in Jalen Carter, you don't need anything too crazy alongside of him. You just need someone who can take advantage of the
I know, but
one-on-one
their
matchups.
formula is to always load up the defensive line, and if you can add crazy stuff next to Jalen Carter, like you saw the ascension of Nolan Smith really quickly, and how good that made this defense that much better, and like the coverage was already good, but now they have to cover for even less time, and now the windows are closing even quicker for the quarterbacks because of the pressure that he's getting. But I also think the evolution of Jalix Hunt that quickly too really helped the defense out. And now he's a guy that can truly carve out being like that third edge rusher that you can really rely on in the rotation. He's not going to be like ever like that starter level quality guy, but as a third round guy, if he's able to be that right outside of being a starter and the filling guy that's playing, 30 snaps a game.
If he could be Vinny Curry, that would be a hit
Yeah.
for the Eagles.
Or Brandon
I
Graham.
think he can definitely be Vinny
But
Curry.
that's also a role with Brandon Graham. Like Brandon Graham was productive, like in the Rams game. He was going crazy this year in LA when Saquon was going crazy too. And then obviously he tore the triceps right after that.
I
But
think
the Brandon Graham role, I feel like, is kind of hard to replace because he was playing inside and outside.
Well, I think they might have Jahad Campbell also work inside a bit, from what I've heard. Which I
I don't
think
really see Jahad Campbell being able to play 3-4 defense end though. So we'll see about
I think he could. I think he could do it. But with Jalix Hunt, I see his in terms of being a rotational guy. I see his production more so being along the lines of what Chris Long was able to accomplish when he was in the rotation. I see him being a bit more impactful than Vinny Curry. So, but right now the D line it's absolutely loaded. I think it's really going to eat. But I before I get into my meatball of the week, there is one final draft selection I want to bring up just because it's another local guy, and I'm really happy for him that he gets to be an Eagle, and I'm excited to see him in the preseason because I thought he did excellent in college, and that's Kyle McCord.
Yeah, I was happy they drafted a quarterback
I
in the late
actually
rounds.
I actually love that pick. Like I'm with you too. I had 4 quarterbacks in this draft that I thought had starting NFL potential, and McCord was one of them. That falls under where Zach pointed out. These guys are taking 5-star guys. I mean, he was like the #1 quarterback in the country. Coming
Yeah.
out of high school, 3-time state champion. With St. Joe's Prep. He has all the tools that you would want in a quarterback. I don't even want to say it didn't work out at Ohio State. I feel like they kind of did him dirty, and he was just like, "All right, I'm leaving." Because I think if you put him on that team last year, they still win a national championship. Like, there's no doubt in my mind he's a better quarterback than Will Howard. But I think he's actually like that's a very good like long-term backup. Or if he plays well in the preseason, can flip him for picks. I think the quarterback room is awesome now with him and Tanner McKee and obviously Jalen Hurts. And DTR, it might be the worst quarterback I've ever
There's
seen in my life, but
I don't even think we're going to
there's
see any of
literally
him
no
in the
chance of making the
preseason. He
roster.
might get
He's the
cut.
worst quarterback in the
He might get
history of the
cut
NFL.
after training camp. But this now we're in a position.
He'll be a tight end by August.
he's going to have wide receiver 4.
Yeah,
But
he's gonna be
we're in
Greg
a
Ward.
we're in a position now where I actually find myself really excited for the preseason because we're basically just going to see McKee and McCord all preseason. Like one half of McKee, one half of McCord. I'm assuming, and I'm excited for all of that. No Kenny Pickett, no Marcus Mariota. No Clayton Thorson, the guy we were talking about last week. So I'm hyped for the preseason. But anyway, it's now time for my meatball of the week. And my meatball of the week is Jax Ulbrich, who did what a lot of people do, apparently. I didn't realize this was that common, but he got Shedeur Sanders' number from his father's notes. Jeff Ulbrich, who is a part of the Falcons, called up Shador Sanders, told him they were gonna told him, I think he said they were the Steelers and they were gonna pick him, and then just like hung up on him. And apparently a lot of people do it, but the reason why Jax Ulbrich is my meatball of the week is because it ended up costing his father $100,000 fine, and ended up costing the Falcons, I think, a $250,000 fine. So that was one expensive prank phone call. Jax Ulbrich, you're my meatball of the week.
I've seen like 35 other players say that they got prank called during this draft. So,
Yeah, I feel like they're all just coming out now. Like, and I don't know if it's a social
but
media
remember
age.
last year, Cooper
Yeah.
DeJean got prank called last year,
Yeah.
but that was like the only person in the entire NFL that said anything about them getting prank called at any
Well,
point.
that's what I was gonna say. I don't know if it's like social media age now, like people just want to, but like I don't think you've ever heard of a guy being prank called ever, like up until like last year, and now this year apparently like 25 guys got prank called.
Yeah, it
would
is.
you rather get prank called or a picture of you smoking a gas mask bong get
I,
posted
I,
online
I
40
guess
minutes?
I
Well,
guess
that
it would.
costed him a lot of money, so I'd
It
rather
would
get
like
prank called.
if the Browns or somebody was about to draft me, then I'll probably take the bong pick. But
Yeah, you don't want to get prank called thinking you're about to go to the Steelers, and then it ends up being the Cleveland
But
Browns.
if we want to talk about general NFL draft talk real quick before we move on to some Phillies talk, the Browns themselves, I feel like they made one of the boldest moves in the draft in passing on a guy like Travis Hunter and moving back. I like Mason Graham a lot, but a guy like Travis Hunter gives you a chance to fail twice at two different positions, or if he pans out, he can somehow play two positions, or like a toned down version where he plays like wide receiver 3 on offense and starting corner on defense, or nickel corner on defense and starting wide receiver on offense. So I thought that was pretty bold of the Browns to move back. But what they ended up with in the draft, I actually loved what the Browns did in the draft.
and what I think the Browns' philosophy is also what kind of like not necessarily hurt Shador, but is a reason why he like slid. Like there was only a handful of teams in this draft that needed. There was only a couple of teams that need a quarterback.
There was like
There was
4
only
teams that needed a quarterback.
yeah, and then there was only maybe another handful that were even considering drafting one, and then next a couple scouts even came out and said they said our team just decided we're just punting on the quarterback position this year and we're gonna try again next year because on paper there should be a pretty deep quarterback class next year, at least of guys who have a lot of upside. We're top recruits coming out of high school. It remains to be seen what they do in the NFL, obviously. But I think the Browns set themselves up where they know their roster isn't really like at a level to where it could compete, even if you add a guy like Travis Hunter. So I think they got a guy who is going to be a monster, in my opinion, next to Myles Garrett. And then they also picked up additional picks and, most importantly, an extra first next year in case they want to move up to take their quarterback in the future.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
like
I
thinking
think
about it
that's a
that way,
huge
but I hate
reason.
thinking about it in the other way as they had the second overall pick and they moved out of it. So now the pick that they're taking in the future is almost most likely not going to be the number 1 overall pick or the number 2 overall pick. So they're moving back in the draft. Like the number 2 overall pick, you only get a new. I mean, I say that, but you're also the Browns, so you're going to get it a bunch of times.
I mean,
But a
who's going to
normal
be
team
starting
only
for
gets
them
the
this
number 1
year?
overall
Like,
pick or set 2 overall pick a couple times, in a
but
lot of
like their options are Shador, Dylan Gabriel, who's not an NFL quarterback, Kenny Pickett, and then the
Not
corpse
an
of Joe
NFL
Flacco.
quarterback.
I know that's your boy, but like he's
I know
so
he's
old
40
now.
years old. Like, what do you expect? Kenny
And
Pickett
and
sucks. Kenny
Deshaun
Pickett.
Watson on
Dylan
one leg
Gabriel
and
sucks
20
too.
allegations.
Dylan Gabriel and Tyler. Like, I'm not a big Shador guy, but Tyler Shug at pick 40 was disgusting. That dude is going to be one of the worst quarterbacks. I thought that was one of the worst picks
I
I
think
saw.
the Saints have one of the worst QB rooms I've ever seen because they have him, and then they have the guy I completely forgot about, the one from Media Day last year who
Jake
made
Hayner.
all those like
Yeah,
ridiculous
Hayner for Fresno
photos.
State,
Jake
right?
Hayner, and then Spencer Rattler, who
Yeah, and then Spencer
5 star
Rattler. It's just like the
Spencer
worst group
Rattler's the
of
type of guy though, as
individuals at
much as like people
quarterback.
love to hate on him, there's like something tells me he might pan out to be like a mid average. Like he could get 2 years, like the Saints could get 2 years or something.
He really grew up. I mean, he came on to Oklahoma as a 5-star number 1 quarterback in the country, started as a freshman, got Heisman hype, and then loses his job to Caleb Williams, another freshman phenom, And then even if I don't know if you guys have ever watched the show QB1 that's on Netflix.
Yeah, like that
It
was like
follows
the
like the
reason
high
why
school,
his
like the
draft
top
stock
five like
got
high
tanked.
school quarterbacks. Dude,
Yeah,
he was an absolute dickhead on that show. Like,
yeah.
like I hated him.
And yeah, I think ever since all that footage of him in high school came out, that is sort of like when the fall off of Spencer Rattler
People are
happened.
saying that's the same thing that happened to Shador. Like Shador's like working out with Cam Ward, and he's like asking Cam Ward, he's like, "Yo, do you want to make a rap song?" And like
Oh
Cam's
yeah,
like,
I saw
"I play
that.
football, bro. Like, what are you talking about?" Like,
And then Cam Ward was like, I only want to focus on
but I
football.
love when
And
people
Shador kind
zone
of
in on
laughed
one
at
part of the
him.
one perspective, and they like are like, "Oh, well, Shador wasn't represented. He didn't have an agent. That's probably why he fell in the draft." Cam Ward was representing himself too and went #1 overall. So, I mean, you
I
can
thought
make
it was
all the
really funny
excuses
that
for Shador, but
Shiloh during I think it was day 2, maybe. I think it was during day 2 that Shiloh decided to sign with an agent like right away. He was like, yeah, this shit is not working. I'm picking an agent.
or
And
I saw like a conversation between Shiloh and Shador, and like Shador was like defending his dad and like the actions that that Dion was telling Shador, and he was like, "I'm listening to his advice," and like Shiloh was like, "Don't you think it's shit advice for the situation you're in right now?" Like, and he was just being like truthful to the situation. But at the end of the day, I mean, as much as I don't like, like, it's not like I don't like him as a person. Like, it is what it is. I don't really like read too much into it. Like, his personality is what it is. But like, if you're not looking for a starting quarterback, you don't think could be a starting quarterback, you don't invite like that type of personality onto your roster as
Exactly.
a backup quarterback. But I will say I would have drafted him before. I wouldn't have drafted him at 40, but I would have drafted him before Tyler Shug got drafted, and I would like and Dylan
I
Gabriel.
mean,
So
if
like,
I'm about to say, if I was the Browns, I'm taking him before I take Dylan Gabriel
yeah,
too.
I'm taking
But
him in the third round. Like once he
Here,
falls to the
here's
third
the
round, I
one
become
thing
crazy.
though about, but here's the one thing about. I see a lot of people talking about, oh, they took Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round, and then took Shador in the 5th. Which, yeah, it's stupid, but when you think about it, they took one guy in the 3rd round, they took one guy in the 5th. So even if that flip flopped, they still were to end up with both of them. It
Yeah,
wouldn't have
it
made a
really doesn't
difference
matter.
either
It took
way.
2 running
So it
backs.
ends up really not mattering which round you took each quarterback in. You still have them both. You would have had them both regardless, because Dylan Gabriel certainly would have fell to the 5th, in my opinion. So I
yeah,
mean, either way, either way, they have them both. I think it's a little dumb to have them both, but I think the fact that they took one the 3rd, one the 5th, I don't think that's relevant in my opinion.
and I know Shador was upset that he fell, but like he honestly couldn't ask to be going to a better situation. Like if you were to say like I should have been a top 10 pick, I'm a day 1 starter in the NFL. Well, you're going to a team where you legitimately could beat out that quarterback room in training camp and preseason and be the day 1 starter, or at the very least start early on if the team struggles. So I think he's going to have every opportunity that he could ever want to try to prove everybody wrong. And maybe they don't like the fact that they went to the Browns and they thought they were going to be a top pick. But in my opinion, he couldn't ask to be going to a better situation.
Besides him always getting absolutely destroyed at quarterback and their offensive line historically not being good, besides like their most historic player being Joe Thomas over the past like 20 years of football. So, but yeah, that was interesting. What do you think about the rest of the NFC East before we move on to Phillies talk, like and what they did in the draft? Because the Cowboys, they got questioned for the 12th overall pick, but I actually like what they did in the 2nd and 3rd round a lot. I like Tyler Booker as a player. I just thought that was a little bit high and they could have used like more of a skill position player. But getting Donovan Ezeraku in the 2nd round and then getting Siobhan Revel in the 3rd round. Siobhan Revel was getting talked about possibly going in the back end of the 1st round to like a team like Buffalo, who ended up going with another corner in that position. But I thought the Cowboys actually did good in the mid rounds. And like the one compliment that I told Dante before that I will give Jerry Jones is he drafts guys well. He just doesn't know how to take care of them when it comes time to give them a contract.
Yeah, no, I thought the Cowboys had a good draft. Like I'm the same with you. I think Tyler Booker's a good player. 12 was probably a little early, but I also think 12 would have been early for a guy like Golden or like one of them skill position guys. I
Yeah.
could have seen maybe Travion Henderson. Because I was actually shocked he fell to where he fell. In my opinion, he was the second best running back in the draft. Is great in pass protection, which is huge in the NFL, and is a home run hitter. But yeah, I had Tyler Booker viewed as my number one interior offensive lineman in this class. But I do have a caveat to that where I put out I didn't have a like day one starter like thing. I don't know if there's any surefire day one starters at center or guard in this entire draft. I think it was a weak interior lineman draft, but I think Booker was the best of them, and I think he does have a chance to be really good. And then yeah, you said getting Donovan in the second round, getting to put him next to Micah, him getting to learn from Micah. Um, I think was also another great pick. The Giants also had a really good draft as well, in my opinion. Landed the number one player in the draft, and Abdul Carter is going to suck having to face him for 5 years until he leaves and becomes an Eagle. Um, but
Me and Dante were talking about how I'd rather face Abdul Carter than Travis Hunter personally, but
that's tough. That's tough because I feel like if Travis Hunter went to the Giants, I don't know if the quarterback is
he'd be
still
on
going to hinder
offense
him.
next to Malik Neighbors, and I would not be trying to play. Like, I like our corners a lot, and everybody speaks highly of the Eagles' corners. That's probably honestly when you talk about the Eagles, the first two things you probably mentioned besides Saquon nowadays is like how good the corners and wide receivers are. And then like obviously the offensive line's always been good, so that's like a thing. But like you just mentioned, like how like historically, like the corners and wide receivers, like on the outside at skill position, and like the two in the passing game. I mean, the Eagles match up with anybody, but if you put Travis Hunter and Malik Neighbors out there together on a field, I mean that could be, especially with a guy like Russ too. That would have been an issue with like an experienced quarterback being able to get the ball to those guys. So that's what I would have been scared about, but at least we don't have to worry about that. But that pass rushing rotation is interesting. They announced we talked about on the live draft show. They announced that Kayvon Thibodeau fifth-year option like right after that. So I guess they were trying to give him a boost of confidence, but we'll see how that situation plays out. But if they can actually get him to buy in to be the third edge rusher, because I think now it's clear that Abdul Carter and Brian Burns are the guys, and then he's second fiddle, even though he was a top draft pick, being the 7th overall guy a couple years back. That could be a really lethal 3-guy rotation, and like that's all it takes to be like a 7-8 win team. You have Russ at quarterback, like an experienced, good quarterback that can just keep you consistent, not do anything too crazy, and then just have a crazy like pass rush. And then they have Dexter Lawrence in the middle too. Like that
Is
could be an
that is
issue.
that not the funniest QB room in the NFL? Like maybe NFL history. You have Russell Wilson, who is like the most straight edge,
Yeah, the
like
Browns. I
cornball
mean,
player. You have Jameis, who at this point is like more just doing it for like off the field shit than he is on the field. Then you bring in Jackson Dart, who's like the ultimate like frat kid. Like it's
Is
just like
that dude? That interview with Gruden where he asked him what his snap count is, and he just goes, "You ready?"
he was like, "That's
You have
it."
a dummy clap? Yeah, we call it purple.
Oh, that was no. And then you
oh,
have
and there's
Tommy Cutlet.
there's also
Yeah, and then you got Tommy Cutler.
we have the
So yeah,
video of
a
Makuba
lot of
putting
personality in that
Gunner
QB
Stockton
room.
to sleep, but there's also the video of Jahad Campbell absolutely wrecking Jackson Dart in
Yeah,
college too, in the middle of the field on a scramble, and just like pretty much picking him up and like suplexing him to the ground, and like I'll be happy to see that for years to come. But yeah, I feel like the NFC East did pretty well in the draft. This draft, like you said, top end talent. There was like 10 guys that stood out, and then it kind of dropped off after that, and like 2 or 3 of those top actually like out of the top 10 guys that I thought stood out, like 6 of them went probably where they should, and like 4 of them fell like big. I think both tight ends
hmm
fell, like Ty Warren and Colson Loveland, even though Loveland went before Warren.
Which is
He was like a
insane.
top 8 prospect to me, and Warren was right in front of him. And then Jahad Campbell and Will Johnson, to me, were also top 10 prospects, and they just completely fell out
And
of the
I thought Pierce, the defensive end out of Tennessee that went to the Falcons, was also like a top
A lot
12,
of people
15
thought that was
player.
an overpay. How do you feel about that? Do you
Oh
think
no, the Falcon they got a really good player in my opinion, but that no, the trade was asinine.
yeah, crazy. That was like the Saints trade back in the day that the Eagles got hooked up with, like where that
Yeah,
was just ridiculous. Like Chris Olave is a good player, but like that's not working out to the level of like, how the Eagles traded a first round pick for AJ Brown, and then Traylon Burks was the result for the Titans, and he sucks. And then the other two players that they got to was that one tackle who's okay that I think starts for them a little bit, but they're the Titans, so But
Well, anyway, it's time to move on to some Phillies talk now. Currently, Phillies are up 1-0 against the Nationals with Nationals have a runner in second, no outs. Taijuan Walker has been pitching great so far, but just gave up a leadoff double. I guess I kind of just want to, before we were talking about what we wanted to talk about with the Phillies, but since this has been going on simultaneously, I kind of want to start by talking about this. Where did this Taijuan Walker come from? At first, I thought his first few starts, like one of them looked pretty shaky. So I was like, all right, I'm not putting too much stock into this. But I mean, this is another good performance right now from Taijuan Walker. He's in his sixth inning, not giving up a run thus far.
yeah, well, the thing about Taijuan Walker is like when he pitches well, like he'll be good and he'll keep going good. But the second adversity hits, that's when the floodgates absolutely open. So that's just like we had a leadoff double to start the inning. I'm watching the game next to me right
He just
now.
took a line drive to the nuts. Oh, no, to the thigh, to the thigh. I thought it was to the nuts. Yeah, that line drive got right in the thigh.
So I moved the runner over to third base. So, I mean, yeah, Taijuan Walker, Rangers apparently is right around returning. They bypassed like a big issue with Christopher Sanchez, who had to leave his start after 2 innings a couple starts ago. They bypassed a big issue with him not being injured. So he'll be in the rotation. So Taijuan, is he coming out of the game now?
No, I think they're just gonna give him some time here.
Well, I just lost thought while I was saying
Yeah,
that.
he's
Like
throwing right now, but
pitching rotation injuries, and like we might have one arising in front of us as we speak. But Taiwan's probably going to be bumped out of the rotation very soon, or maybe like in a long reliever role for the bullpen. And the bullpen could really use a boost because a couple weeks ago, I was talking mad shit on Orion Kirkring, and I kind of just did it out of the blue because I just feel like he wasn't living up to expectations because he needed to be like the guy that in-house where they didn't make too many big moves outside. He needed to just take that next step for that rotation, that bullpen group to be a lot better, and he's been bad. And then, I mean, things have gotten worse. Like he's a guy that you just can't rely on.
Well, before we get to Kirkring, I just want to confirm what you were saying. Ranger Suarez is currently scheduled to pitch on Sunday. So Ranger Suarez is officially back in the rotation. We'll see what they do with Walker, if they put him in the bullpen or.
And they just said Andrew Painter. Rob Thompson was talking about how Andrew Painter needs to face better competition, so he's going to possibly get boosted up. He actually misspoke and said that he's going to be playing in Lehigh the other day, and a lot of people got alarmed by that. And they were excited, but he's not. That wasn't actually true, but that could be in the near future. So Andrew Painter might be coming up to the big leagues in a couple months. And I
think the plan for Painter is July, and then I think once that happens, they're going to go to a 6-man rotation with.
But it's also
capped
at 100 innings, right?
I don't know that. Maybe probably.
Yeah, that's what it's capped at.
I think it's more so. It's more so to try to save Wheeler and Nola's arm for October, and now Luzardo, save their arms for the playoff push.
Yeah, I think the past week, all of the starting pitching has looked really well.
Luzardo. I think it's good that they added Jesus Luzardo, and they have 2 legit righties and 2 legit lefties, even though Aaron Nola hasn't been the best to start the season, but we have a lot of time.
I was just about to say, Aaron Nola finally looked good in his most recent outing. I would say pretty much all of their starters have looked great in their most recent outings. Taijuan Walker as well, as long as he continues to pitch well through this game. Hopefully he can get out of this jam right now, runner on third, 1 out. But going back to Kirkering, I texted you after he gave up that 3-run homer, and I said I can't defend him anymore. Now, although I can't defend him,
you, and I said I texted you first, and then
you texted me first, but I said I can't defend him anymore. And what I was gonna say is, although like at the moment I can't defend him right now, what I will say is this: this is only really his second season in the MLB. He pitched great last season. this is year 3. I think he still has a long career ahead of him. He still has plenty of time to pick it back up this season. But even if this ends up being a 5 ERA season out of the bullpen for Kerkering, I mean, how many great relievers have we seen have a high ERA season such
Yeah,
as
but this
this
is he
at
picked
some
a
point
bad
early
season
in
to
their
have it when
career?
they're 29th in bullpen ERA right
Well, it's
now.
because he's the only right-handed reliever that you honestly like can kind of trust. I feel like he hasn't shown it this year, but like they have Strom and Alvarado, two lefties, and then that's it. Like
Yeah.
every single
I
right-hander
don't
in the
trust Tanner
bullpen is
Banks.
like,
I don't trust Jose Ruiz. I don't
yeah,
trust Joe
And that's
Ross.
the thing
Hernandez,
too,
like,
Go
is
down the list. Like,
Kerkering has been given such a bigger role in just his second season. And like
yeah.
I've been saying about him,
but
his
his
stuff
issue
is
is
all there. He's got a great fastball, he's got a great sweeper. And I think a lot of it is issues that he can correct. I mean, they pointed out when he gave up that 3-run homer, he shook off JT. I mean, that's something to learn from. Maybe next time, don't shake off JT and throw the pitch he wants you to throw. Maybe if he does that, he ends up, not giving up a 3-run homer. So I think like his stuff is all there. I think he's very young. He's been thrown into, a big situation. I think, he still has a long career ahead of him and he can be a big part of the Phillies bullpen in the future. But right now, it's not going well.
yeah,
But
that
also
was
the other night he did the giving up the home run was his fault. But Trey Turner missed through. I had a throw in error. Rojas misplayed the ball in center. If those two make those two should be routine plays, he's out of the inning without giving up a run, and the Phillies
Yeah.
win, and the game's not even close. Given
yeah.
the home run was his fault, and it's not great that he's shaking off JT, but also he should have never been in that position to give up the home run.
And what's
Also,
funny
it's
is
also
in
kind
that
of crazy
same
though how
game,
people
Zach
talk about.
Wheeler said, sorry, in that same game, Zach Wheeler said the one time he shook off JT the whole game was when he gave up
Mm-hmm.
the home run as well. So, I mean, it's like lesson learned, just listen to what JT says and you'll pitch fine.
Yeah, I feel like that's pretty disrespectful to.
And Taiwan Walker's starting to lose it out there. God damn it. That's the third run to come across this inning. We were
But
just we were just talking highly about him, and now he's doing this.
Well, yeah,
But
I was. I was.
The Iron Pigs down in AAA have the number one bullpen in all of AAA baseball right now. And then there's I forget his name. I wouldn't even be able to pronounce it anyway. But there is a Japanese kid, who is
I was
like
talking
their
about him to start the season. The Japanese kid that they signed, he was like 30 years old. That was like a multiple-time All-Star that they signed on a minor league contract in the
but he
offseason.
has I think they said he has 8 appearances this year, and he has a barely above 1 ERA so far this year. Um, So I mean, we could be seeing a few of those guys maybe come up if the bullpen continues to not get it done. Because if you have the number one bullpen in AAA just sitting down there, and you have the 29th ranked bullpen up here, let's maybe go ahead and give those guys a shot.
Or if you have outfield issues and you have a 300 hitter who's a 22-year-old prospect that you can bring up that's like 6'6", that runs like the wind and plays crazy defense and is a 300 hitter, you could anoint him. But I thought it was crazy how Johan and Trey Turner made those mistakes in that game, and then Orion led up the home run, and then everybody was like yelling at Johan and Trey Turner in that game when Johan and Trey Turner were like the single source of the entire
Yeah,
offense of the Phillies. And
Yeah,
like Trey had literally 4 hits, and people are on the radio calling in bench Trey. He needs to sit down for a week. Like, bro, he just had 4 hits.
he had just had he had just had 4 hits,
He just
and
had
not
3
only
hits like
that, they were teaming
5
up
days ago.
together. Not only that, they were teaming up together to get those runs. It was Johan Rojas on first base and Trey Turner hitting a double, and Johan going through the stop sign and scoring on said double. With their
And the
offense
Phillies
and their
afford for Johan Rojas to like his defense looks like it's a little bit diminished this year, but he actually looked like I don't think I can trust his bat ever come playoff time. But right now, I will say regular season wise, he looks like an improved hitter. But I can't trust that come playoff time.
and
I
this is
still
what
look
I
like they're in
said
that
going into
position.
the year. I said Johan Rojas breakout year, and you laughed at me. And so far, he's doing really well at the plate.
Oh, I thought. Bryson Such is
Yeah,
caught
that
me.
was a great. Well, he was still able to knock it down.
We're
And
talking about the center field and how much I don't like the outfield's obviously been the issue position player wise for a while for this team, but I'm not willing to entertain like a Luis Robert trade anymore. Sean, I know you're a big Luis Robert guy, but like with Justin Crawford like looming, you know what I mean? I'm not trading for that position or a shortstop or a third baseman since like Aiden Miller's like sitting there, you know what I mean? So
Right.
one
Yeah. No,
thing I
I'm with
will
you.
say is I will be down as much as I wouldn't trade for a third baseman. If I was going to go get a guy, I'm not trading Alec Bohm for him just because I don't like it matching up age-wise on the timeline of the team to make them older. But the Nolan Arenado trade, I mean, he's still a hell of a player that is ridiculous on defense, 10-time Gold Glover, and the bat's still there. And a two-way player like that could really boost this lineup significantly, especially a right-handed bat that you can trust, that you could bat somewhere like 3 through 5 or 6.
I don't even know why, as Phillies fans, we're even entertaining like picking up a difference maker. You already know at the deadline we're gonna go trade for a reliever that has a 6.43 ERA, and we're gonna go add outfielder like Tommy Pham. Like,
Yeah, but Austin, I pointed out last podcast, Austin Hayes is balling for the Reds this year.
he
Like
is. He absolutely
he's
is.
played like 15 games and he's got like 5 or 6 home runs or something crazy. Like he's like cranking the ball. But it's just funny they didn't let that situation play out at all. And yeah, they'll probably go trade for a reliever. I thought the funniest thing that I always point out was that Carlos Estevez was their biggest addition last off trade deadline, and he had 2 home runs leading up to the trade deadline, and one of them was given up to Johan Rojas when the Phillies had back-to-back home runs to take the lead in Los Angeles when they played them earlier in the season. So I thought that was hilarious. But
I do
yeah,
think help is on the way for the Phillies, though. I think Crawford has a chance to be up this season at some point. Honestly, maybe not until like August, September, though, barring an injury. But Otto Kemp, I actually think is going to be up here before May's done. He has 9 home runs now in AAA. Is batting over 300. Can play, gives you versatility. Guy that can play second or the corner outfield spots. They've been working him in left field in AAA this season, and I think he's like a 26-year-old, I think 25, 26. So he's not like a full blown prospect like a 21, 22-year-old. But I think he's actually like on the short list and going to be up here pretty soon.
yeah. Looking at Otto Kemp's numbers so far, he's batting 319, 414 OBP, slugging 673 for an OPS above 1,000. He's got the 9 homers you've mentioned, 29 ribbies. He's having one heck of a year. And then I also, I'm just looking at some of the Iron Pick stats here. The Japanese pitcher you're mentioning, he's so far pitched 9
let's
innings.
get a name pronunciation on that real quick. Let's get a name check on that.
I'm going to guess Koyo. Koyo. His last name, I can't even attempt his last name, but he's
Type the
got
name in
9
the Google
innings out of the
Translator and
pen.
just play the speaker.
He's got 9 innings out of the pen, giving up 4 hits, 1 earned run, 9 strikeouts. So, I think bottom line, they have to improve the bullpen, whether it's calling him or somebody else up, whether it's making a trade. Right now this bullpen is weak. They need to add to it. You can make your debates on if they need to bring in another outfielder or not. But the bottom line, what needs to be done is this bullpen needs to improve. So hopefully they do something there.
Well, Taiwan's been pitching pretty decent like this year. Could we scam somebody?
I don't think
Maybe.
anybody's taking that contract.
I know but we're like 3 years deep into it now. So
Yeah,
it's
he's
like
only got one more year after
back
this
end
year.
of
It's
the
not
deal
like in
now.
the
So it's like
beginning when it was
almost,
a 4-year contract.
if somebody really needs a starting pitcher for like a 4th or 5th option type guy.
Oh, here's our guy out on the mound with a runner on third and 2 outs, a Ryan Kirkering. Let's see if he can redeem himself.
Bombs away. I'm betting a live line. I'm betting a live over right now.
Oh no, it's runners.
Orion Kirkering, I like his stuff. He just always is making.
He's got great stuff, man. He's got a ton of potential. I'm telling you.
But I just like we talked about before, it never made sense that they traded Sir Anthony Dominguez, and I
It
think
never
that's
made sense they trade
all
Sir
the
Anthony. It
relationship.
never made sense they didn't keep Estevez. It never made sense they didn't keep Hoffman. This is stuff I've been talking about each week. It just was so dumb for them to just get rid of their entire bullpen for absolutely no reason. They didn't really rekindle it other than bringing Jordan Romano, who's been a complete disaster. They killed the bullpen, and now they're looking at a mediocre record as a result of it, sitting, I think coming into this game, sitting 3.5 games behind the Mets, assuming they ended up losing last night. Last I checked, they were down 2-0 in the ninth.
And then you get caught in a spot here where like you feel like Taiwan's got to come out of the game, but you don't trust your bullpen to take him out of the game. You leave him in for too long, and then he creates a mess, and then the bullpen has to come in to try and put out the fire of the mess, and then they have an issue with putting and extinguishing the fire. So, I mean, the other day when they won, it was pretty much ridiculous. They had no business in winning that game at all. They blew that lead. And when they came back and won on a wild pitch, I mean, that's just, a Hail Mary in itself. But I was not happy or pleased with that win.
Well, the wild pitch wasn't oh my God. The fielding woes continue. Marchand just tried to throw out a guy stealing second. They hadn't picked off Trey Turner.
Hold on.
To the outfield, and a run scores. Wow. That's horrible. Oh, it was more so a bad throw by Marchand, actually. Yeah, that's on Marchand.
That was like literally on the grass of the infield.
What's up?
That didn't even touch the dirt.
It was a bad throw by Marchand.
Infield. That was horrific.
Yeah, that was a bad throw by Marchand, a guy who I've been high on his defense.
Yeah,
I already know Trey Turner is going to get all the blame for this from the fans.
Without a doubt.
They like to do.
100%. He's in that territory of Tobias Harris, Benson.
I'm going to check Twitter already. I'm willing to bet you I can find somebody right off the bat.
People were calling in to sit him down for a week or two after he had 4 hits in a game because he made an error in the field.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, here we go. Here's a tweet from 50 seconds ago. Turner is embarrassing. Come on.
I do think his ego wouldn't allow him, but I do think the Phillies would benefit if they just swap Turner and stop.
I don't understand why that hasn't happened yet.
I think it's Trey. Trey is making the money he's making, and his ego is saying, I'm not a second baseman. Because apparently the Padres and the Mariners both wanted to sign him when he signed with the Phillies, and both wanted to have him at second base, and he told both teams, no, I'm not playing second base.
Yeah, that's like the Rafael Devers thing. And then when Alex Bregman got signed, and then he was like, yeah, I'm not doing it. And then they're like, yeah, well, you're not playing third base anymore. So get over it and move on.
Yeah, I agree. Like the Phillies should just be like, look, Trey, love you, but you ain't a shortstop defensively, bud. It's either take your pick. You want to play center or do you want to play second?
Yeah, having him. How does it make sense that Bryce and Bryson Stott are both gold glove level defensemen, and we have them next to each other, and then we have the two isolated worst defensemen in the infield next to each other, sitting there in the biggest gaps that you have to cover in the infield.
Yeah, when you put it like that, it makes a ton of sense to swap Stott and Turner. Absolutely. But yeah, this game isn't looking great. In all likelihood, they will still at least win the series against the Nationals.
And I would say it's like all the Washington Nationals, and I would be upset, but I think the Washington Nationals in a year or two are actually going to be really good. I really like this lineup.
Either way, they won the series. They won the first 2 games, so it's a series win.
I know, but I can't be mad about them giving up runs to the Nationals like I could be in years past, because I actually do think they have talent throughout their lineup.
No, that's going to be
Trey Turner with a leadoff base hit now. So
that's going to be looked at as one of the most lopsided trades in MLB history. Is what the Padres gave the Nationals for a year and a half of Juan Soto, and got nothing to show for it. I mean, James Wood, Mackenzie Gore, Hassel, C.J. Abrams, they gave them legit. Hassel still hasn't made it up yet, but I mean, James Wood, C.J. Abrams. Are legit.
Those two players are the 2 best players. They're literally the 2 best players.
Exactly, and Mackenzie Gore's their ace.
Yeah. And And the Padres gave the Yankees in the other trade for Juan Soto, Trent Grisham, who has like a bunch of home runs for the Yankees and is
Yeah.
batting like
Look, imagine that
30.
Padres lineup right now with instead of Bogarts being people talk about Trey Turner being the worst contract in baseball. I think it's easily Xander Bogarts.
Well,
He
I
Bogarts
can't
is
don't
playing
hit.
a
I
little
don't
bit better.
hate the
He's playing a
Trey
little bit
Turner
better this year,
contract at
but
all.
well,
He's
like
been
I don't
such a
know. I
good
feel like Javi
hitter.
Baez is the worst contract. Is the
I
worst
don't know.
contract.
He dropped some weight and he's playing center field for the
I
Tigers
know.
this
Did you
year.
see that catch that he made the other day? People were,
Yeah.
yeah.
But if you
But yeah,
added like James Wood
he's
and C.J. Abrams to that Padres roster right now, like they would be nasty. And Mackenzie Gore to that rotation, like they would
I was
be
like the Dodgers
nasty.
had didn't the Dodgers have Onel Cruz and they traded him back in the day for like a relief pitcher and then they
Yeah.
just gave but the Pirates, that's a
The
team that
White
just
Sox, the White Sox had Fernando Tatis and traded him for James Shields.
jeez. Jeez. We had Logan O'Hoppe and we traded him for Brandon Marsh.
But I'm okay with that though. Given
I
Marsh,
know
like
because
obviously,
JT has no spot.
yeah,
JT was just done,
Ohapi
but
was never gonna play here.
I mean he could
Yeah,
DH though. You could consider him at DH and then
Yeah,
I think it hurts to see Logan Ohape, it's elsewhere
and
playing
not to
great.
mention we got a 19-year-old right now who's gonna be our catcher of the future anyway, Eduardo Tate.
Yeah,
Almost
he's
double
big.
that's a
digit
good
home runs
Hasn't
right
point.
he
now
been
for
playing?
Clearwater.
Hasn't he been playing like minor league ball since he was like 16 or 17?
Yeah,
Yeah, so he's like blossoming. So he's another guy. Hopefully they fast track him. I feel like just the Phillies compared to all other organizations in the MLB, they just like take the long scenic route to get these prospects up
I
immediately.
actually thought the same thing, but after like the Ryan Howard and Utley thing where they came up kind of like middle of like their thing, the Phillies are actually average calling guys up when they're 24 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And some of those guys, like,
By the way,
completely fired out, like
Bryce
Scott
Harper
Kingery.
just
Scott
responded with a
Kingery was
base
like
hit.
one of
Now we have
3
runners
players in
on first and
MLB
second, no
history to get a
outs.
contract extension before ever playing an MLB game. And then we saw how that worked out. And we saw how some of the other prospects that they had.
was just his birthday yesterday, by the way. Shout out Scott Kingery, 31st birthday.
Scotty.
Yeah, I can't believe Scott Kingery is still around. But yeah,
Well,
Harper also just got a base
that's
knock.
what
So
you talked about pre-podcast. So you wanted to talk about Harper slumping right now. I think he's batting like 245. Him and Schwarber. Schwarber's had a couple flurries of recent home runs, but outside of that, he's been cold too.
well, Schwarber now has an opportunity with one swing of the bat to tie this game with nobody out. I think they're about to put in a left-hander, however. But I mean, Schwarber went through like a couple weeks where he didn't do a whole lot, and since then he's hit 2 home runs recently. That's the thing with Schwarber. He might be catching fire again rather quickly. Like I mentioned before the podcast, like going 2 weeks without a home run, that's like normal for most guys in the league. But when Schwarber does it, it's like he's in the slump. I mean, that just shows you how great of a home runner he is, that you consider 2 weeks to be like a hiatus for him.
Yeah, and he's really important. I saw a trade today that had him involved. I forget who the player was for, but had the Phillies trading. I think it was Taijuan Walker, Kyle Schwarber, and somebody else for another player. And I just thought that was crazy to even
I'm
consider
not
that
getting rid of
missing a
Schwarber.
contract
I
year.
am
So
not getting rid of Schwarber, man.
yeah, I think that
He's
would be an issue, but it is something that they have to start figuring out what the future is for him because his contract is up. JT is in the contract year, and then Ranger as well. So I like their pitching rotation. I feel like they don't really have anything to worry about. The Taijuan Walker contracts running out, but we also talked about now we might be stuck on a horrific contract with Aaron Nola if he continues to spiral downward. But outside of that, Luzardo, Sanchez and Wheeler you can really trust. So I feel like their pitching rotation is okay. But I don't know what they're going to do with Ranger. I guess it really depends on how he pitches now. I feel like Ranger could really be auditioned and could be like a shock move that he's actually like traded at the trade deadline. I feel like that might actually be a possibility.
I'll tell you what, man. As much as I like Ranger, if it means getting bullpen help, I
But if you're
wouldn't
looking
hate
at
it
this roster, it's just like if
depending
you're
on
trying
how
to,
the rest of the starting pitchers are looking.
if you're looking at this roster and you're like trying to pluck talent to like have trade value, like it's probably like Alec Bohm or Ranger Suarez. You know what I mean? That's probably like the
Yeah.
two pieces that you have. Like maybe Taiwan, but like someone would have to really be desperate for that situation to happen. But we've seen teams do other things before. So they'd be fire to trade Taiwan for a prospect that works out down the line, and then all those years of misery for Taiwan turn into like a fire prospect that comes up and is like a major trade, just like how the James Shield trade was back in the day. But for the Phillies, I feel like they just they really need to correct the bullpen. That's an issue, but their offense has been really dry, and they've been really bad. Like right now, Kyle Schwarber, this is outside of Bryce Harper being up to bat, or Nick Castellanos. This is the best situation the Phillies could be in with Kyle Schwarber up to bat with two guys on. But they've been bad as a team with runners in scoring position, so they need to correct that. And their 2 through 4 guys have just not been getting it done. I mean, Trey's been having big games recently, but like Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper specifically have not been getting it done. And when those two guys are slumping, it's usually alternating between like either one of those guys slumping. But if they're both slumping next to each other in the lineup, it's going to be tough for the Phillies to win games. So they don't really have that back end talent like a Teoscar Hernandez, even though he bats like in the 4 hole for.
Teoscar's got what, 9 home runs on the year right now?
Who, Teoscar?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a lot. Tommy Edmonds got like 10 or something crazy. Shohei's only got, I think, like 7 home runs and like 10 RBIs or something like that. Only like 10 RBIs, but he bats leadoff. So, I mean, the Phillies weren't the only team like batting a power hitter in the leadoff spot. Aaron Judge used to bat leadoff for the Yankees too. So.
Yeah, well, anyway, full count here to Schwarber, but I think that kind of wraps up the Phillies talk for tonight.
Sean, you're not a big NBA guy now. You've departure from the NBA. You used to have Sixers season tickets. What do you think happened there?
Well, one, the Sixers organization is unserious, and 2, I can't make a full NBA game anymore. I think the product is awful. It's just dribble, jack up a 3, flop for a foul. It's just I can't watch it anymore. I much prefer to watch college basketball over the NBA.
Yeah, the product has gone down a little bit. This NBA playoffs has been surprisingly really good with some of the matchups, but some of the other matchups have been complete blowouts. Like the Grizzlies lost by like 50-something at one point, but you do watch college basketball. I know you watch that. So, like, do you keep up with the prospects and everything? So, the Sixers might land a top pick in the draft. We've gone over the results for over the podcast for numerous weeks, so we don't have to bring them back up. But if they do land a top 5 guy, and obviously everyone's glaring and glazing over Cooper Flagg as the number 1 overall guy, but there's a lot of good prospects in this particular draft class as opposed to like last year. Is there a guy in the top 5 outside of Cooper Flagg? Obviously, you have the 2 Rutgers guys, but is there anybody else on your radar that you would like for the Sixers to take with the 5th pick that might get you interested back into NBA basketball a little bit?
I mean, if they landed a guy like Cooper Flagg, I would definitely tune in to see how that would look. But no, I mean the other guy really in the top 5 that I would really be interested in is Ace Bailey, one of the Rutgers guys. I just think Dylan Harper, the other Rutgers guy, like I think is like also a tremendous talent, like does have a good ceiling. But I mean, the Sixers already have so many guards. I don't know where Harper would fit into that.
Yeah, but I talked about that before. Dylan Harper's also 6'6", so he might be able to play like the 3 spot, or like they could just kind of play like positionless basketball, like kind of how like Cade Cunningham fits in with the Pistons at like a 6'7" spot. But
I think Ace Bailey is a legit talent and just would be like a great like positional fit for the Sixers.
I think he would be the perfect fit for the Sixers.
Wouldn't be a bad pick either.
Who?
If Con Knipple made it to like pick 5, I think that wouldn't be a bad
I'm just
pick.
not. I wouldn't really want to like. A lot of people are talking about Queen from Maryland. I don't love it. I don't think like that's the type of guy they would need.
I want like a superstar trait guy, not like a solid prospect that kind of is flatline. We talked about it before. If you land one of these top 5 picks and you can package Joel Embiid to get the number 1 overall pick, and the team that lands the number 1 overall pick is actually sold on a package, or Paul George, you somehow scam them, or if it even took maybe Tyrese Maxey or Jared McCain, would you entertain doing that?
McCain definitely.
Like the 5th overall pick, McCain.
Maxey would be tough. But you know what? I take that back. If it's Landon Cooper Flag, I'm trading both of them.
Exactly. I think I would trade Joel even to land Cooper Flag.
I would trade Joel for like another top 3 pick. I'm at the point where it's just time to move on. Honestly, I think that's also a big reason why I fell out of love with the Sixers, is because every year it's the same exact thing. Like, we get all excited, we got all this talent, boom, Embiid's hurt. Like, at this point, I'm like, I know he's great, and I know if they trade him, that'll be the 1 year he stays healthy and wins a championship. But I'm just over it. I'm ready for like a brand new era of Sixers basketball.
Yeah, I agree. And like them having a lottery pick, that's why I think this might be actually your opportunity to get back into Sixers basketball, because the intrigue of them possibly having a top 5 pick. Like if they, because we've seen it a couple times. I think, wasn't it with the Timberwolves when they got Anthony Edwards, I think, a couple years back, and then another year where I think it might have been the Hawks, where they ended up with the number 1 overall pick out of nowhere, depending on like where the odds lied. I mean, if the Sixers stock land the number 1 overall pick, and then they can get rid of the Paul George trade, or the Paul George contract on a trade, and just get assets back in return, and restart, and still somehow have Joel on the roster, but he's not like the focal point talent anymore. Even with like Tyrese being there, like it was always still the Joel show. But like if you bring in the nut like Cooper Flag, like this is the guy now. You know what I mean? So that would be interesting, but that's kind of far fetched. But we have seen it in recent past. But I would seriously try and tell a team, like if I get the third, but like the number 1 overall team is going to be like the Hornets. Like what value do they have? Like bringing in Paul George or Joel? Like it would have to be Jared McCain or I think it would have to probably be Tyrese Maxey and possibly even Jared McCain too. But that's something I still would possibly entertain. If it lands me Cooper Flag, it's something that I have to consider at the end of the day.
And not to mention, like if you're getting out of Maxey's contract, I know McCain's not making that much, but you would have a cornerstone guy that you could just have all the money in the world to build around too.
At the most important, like stylistic player, that's positionless forward that's 6'9", that can play like anywhere from like 2 to 5, and plays really good defense, crazy athletic. Like I like Con Knipple, his Duke teammate, a lot, but like he's nowhere near as athletic as Cooper Flag. I just think he's a clean player. So I would
That's the same thing. I like Caravan from not Caravan. Why am I blanking on the freshman from UConn? Not Caravan. He just announced he's coming back to UConn. I'm totally blanking, but the kid, he wears the headband like kind of aimed up on his head. Like he's another like position.
I forget his name too.
Yeah, he was a Cooper Flag's teammate in high school. But like that's a guy that like, but again, like I don't think he's athletic enough to be like on par with Cooper Kupp. But he's
that's something that Sixers have
scorer.
lacked like in recent years too, is just an athletic forward or anybody athletic on the wing. And then you see it's not only do they not play above the rim, which like isn't the biggest deal in the world if you can shoot, but it puts more strain on you to shoot when you can't just like create easy plays like that for forwards. But also like they had like Kenyon Martin was like the only athletic guy that they really had in their lineup, and they ended up getting rid of him. And they would use him sparingly, but it would always show up on defense when they had to go and try and cover like the Celtics forwards in the playoffs or something, where they would just like they would have like George Niang out there on the perimeter trying to cover these guys like in like years past, and you're just like, what is going on? Or they have like a specific defensive stopper that has no offensive traits like Matisse Thybulle. And it's like, we need somebody that can do a little bit of both on either side. Like, so I'm actually excited because I feel like they're going to get an opportunity to clean the slate, but it'd be really disappointing if they lose this draft pick and it goes to the Thunder. I'd be really disappointed with that. That would just be a cherry on top to this season being the ultimate disappointment. And also watching
if they lose the pick to the Thunder, and this is my closing statement for the podcast, if they lose their pick to the Thunder, I am jumping off the Walt Whitman.
It would be all, because that means essentially they're just running it back.
Yeah.
And praying everyone stays healthy. But
yeah. I mean, that's what Daryl Morey literally said in the press conference, that he tried to sneak in on everybody when no one was paying attention to it. He said that Joel Embiid and Paul George were both going to be back, but I feel like he's like the least criticized, like worst Philadelphia sports figure that there is. Like he's the least
Done
criticized.
nothing.
Him and Dave Dombrowski literally like pretty much do nothing. I'm not a big Rob Thompson guy either. I hate how lackadaisical he is and just like how he sits on his hands. But like Daryl Morey, like
Here's the thing.
but it's also because nobody really cares about the Sixers anymore. So that's why like you don't hear about him
Right.
like
And when
Here's
somebody
the
if
thing,
somebody
though,
in the city
about
is
Rob
winning,
Thompson is I prefer Rob Thompson being lackadaisical over Gabe Kapler over managing the shit out of the game. So
see, but I think Thompson does overman. I think like we're the only team in baseball that has a new lineup every 2 days. Like find something that works and stick with it. Like this platoon in center field, both players are shit. Just pick one and leave them out there. Like
yeah, exactly.
Hey man, I like
One of the
Rojas.
and then
first
like
to make
and
it
then
better-
having to get
Oh
like
great,
Weston
Joe Ross is
Wilson
on the
or
mound.
Cal Stevenson in the game. Like both of those guys are AAA players.
Yeah. Yeah, their bench, like Edmundo Sosa's like one of the best bench players in the league, and then it's just like AAA guys that just like suck. You know what I mean? Next to him.
Yeah.
Like it's not like I feel
Remember
like Matt
Jake
Kemper
Cade?
would be like a top bench option, but he's like thrust into like a platoon, but most of the time starting left field role.
Yeah.
And that's because they just
And
they
he
have
struck
lack-
out in a crucial spot a moment ago. But I think that'll just about do it for
Yeah,
tonight's
that'll wrap it up
podcast.
for episode 96. Thank you, Sean, for tuning in or
Of course.
hopping on the podcast with us today. Obviously, tuning in as well, talking some Eagles, Phillies, and we kind of squeezed some Sixers talk out of him, even though he said that he wasn't going to do any. I kind of forced it
Yeah.
out.
Well, it's just if you would have asked me anything about the playoffs, I watched I think I watched like 38 seconds of the Lakers Timberwolves last night, and then the Lakers blew it, so I just turned it off.
Yeah. I mean, and also there's no Sixers playoffs to talk, which is crazy because like the past decade, after they went through like a decade of not having Sixers playoffs, like then they were in the playoffs for a very long time after the process era, and now this is like the first year that they haven't. But the way that it was trending and the way that they were, losing a round earlier every single year to the point where the Knicks series last year, where like Tyrese had that like legendary shot in that moment that just, kind of just gets thrown away by them losing that game. So, but yeah, I guess it's it saved our hearts and maybe saved a couple years on our lives that the Sixers were in the playoffs. Like we would all get roped into. I went to the Sixers playing game versus the Heat when Nicholas Batum went off last year when they got into the playoffs, and it was just like so much false hope was like derived from that game where you thought they were actually going to make it a series with the Knicks, but obviously that didn't happen. But thank you guys for tuning in to episode 96. We're approaching episode 100 very soon in the next 4 episodes. So and thanks, Sean, once again for tuning in. Sean, you want to plug up your social media and where people can find you? Sean also does sports bets as well. So have you been active during the baseball season? I know you're a big college basketball guy and college football, but
No, I only do football, NFL, college football, and college basketball. I'm not nearly good enough at baseball to me be offering advice to people. So yeah, but you can follow me on Twitter at @SReddHotSports, on Instagram at ReddHotLocks. And not doing any shows currently. The Green Zone will be back once football starts again, and I am working on a new podcast, but it's not really like sports talk. But that's going to be coming in probably the next couple months. So
cool. So make sure everybody tunes into that, plugs up with the social media. It was a pleasure having you back on the podcast, Sean, and we will see you guys next week.